Hello class, welcome to Algebra Concepts Lesson 5-2, Day 2. Today we're talking about related equations. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to convert between the three types of linear equations. So you might be thinking to yourself, what are the three types of linear equations? Well, they are our slope-intercept form, which we talked about 2 days ago, and then yesterday we talked about point-slope form and standard form. So we're going to practice converting between each of these, okay? So let's jump right into that. If you don't already have these three equations written somewhere easy to access, do that now. Like, pause the video, write them at the top of your paper or on a separate sheet of paper that you can keep next to you, because it's going to be really helpful. Okay, so first, let's practice converting to standard form. So if I look at this equation, I can see that this is my point slope form, and I'm going from point slope to standard form. Okay, so with standard form, we are looking for that ax plus by equals c. So that means I need x and y on the same side of the equal sign. So my first step is actually going to be to distribute to get rid of those parentheses. So I'm going to say y plus 3 equals 2/5 x plus 2/5 times 5 is just 2. Okay, so my parentheses are gone. My next step is going to be to get, I want my variables on the left and my regular numbers on the right. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So I have y equals 2/5 x minus 1. So you can see it's now in slope-intercept form, but I'm looking for standard form. So I'm going to subtract that negative, or that 2/5 over to the other side. So negative 2/5 x minus 2/5 x. And I have negative 2/5 x plus y, because my y is positive, equals negative 1. Now, if I keep going, I'm going to change color just to help us see a difference here. I'm thinking back to our lesson from yesterday where I talked about how we don't like our a term, so the letter or the number with x, I don't like that to be negative. That's actually one of the rules we learned about with standard form yesterday. So yesterday we talked about how if a is negative, what you can do is you can just change it to positive, but then you have to change the sign of everything else. So this positive y is now a negative y, and this negative 1 is now a positive 1. Okay, so that was one of our rules. Then our next rule was talking about how we don't like fractions with our a, b, and c cannot be fractions. So the way we get rid of those fractions is by taking that entire equation and you multiply it by whatever number's in the denominator, the bottom of that fraction. So in this case, that's 5. So I'd say 5 times 2/5, that's just 2x. And then 5 times negative y is negative 5y. And then don't forget to go all the way across the equal sign. 5 times 1 is 5. And then that right there is our final answer. My a value is positive. I don't have any fractions. We are good to go. Okay, so that's how you convert to standard form from point slope form. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and try that with this one? Good luck. Okay, for this problem, hopefully you ended up with 6x plus y equals negative 44. The first thing I did was move the 6x to the left side, then I added 10 to both sides, and that's how I ended up at my final answer there. If you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. I am happy to help you. Now let's practice converting our slope-intercept form, so our slope-intercept form, to standard form. Okay, so with this, we are going to start by moving our x to the left side of the equal sign. So in this case, I'm going to say plus 3/8 x plus 3/8 x. So I have 3/8 x plus y equals 5. And I still don't like having fractions with my standard form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply everything again by the number that's in the denominator or the bottom of that fraction. So 8 times 3/8 is just 3x plus 8 times y is 8y equals 8 times 5, which is 40. And then I check to see my A is positive. It looks like I am good to go. So I can put my box around that and move on. Okay, so now I want you to practice rewriting this equation in standard form. Good luck. Okay, so for this problem, hopefully you ended up with x minus 2y equals 18. The first thing I did was I subtracted 1/2 x to the left side of the equal sign. And then I saw that my a term, that negative 1/2, it was negative. So I changed the sign of everything. So it became a positive 1/2, a negative y, and a positive 9. And then I multiplied everything by the number that was in the bottom of the denominator, which was 2. And then when I did that, I ended up with x minus 2y equals 18. If you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. I'm happy to help you. Let's move on to our next example. So now we are going to practice converting to slope-intercept form. And this time, again, we're starting with the point slope. We're going from point slope to slope-intercept in this example. Okay, so this tends to be pretty straightforward. The first thing you're going to do is distribute it to get rid of the parentheses. So I say y plus 6 equals negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times the negative 4 is a positive 12. And then our next step is to get y by itself, because remember our slope-intercept form is where y is all by itself. So right now, I'm pretty close to having that. I just have to move that 6 over. So then I have y equals negative 3x plus 6. And now it matches my slope-intercept form, and I'm good to go. That's all I have to do to convert from point slope to slope-intercept form. All right, so why don't you try converting this point slope equation into slope-intercept form? Good luck. Okay, for this problem, hopefully you first distributed that negative 1/3. And you ended up with y plus 3 equals negative 2/3 x minus 2. And then you said you needed to get y by itself, so you subtracted 3 from both sides, which left you with y equals negative 2/3 x minus 5. If you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. I'm happy to help you. Now let's practice going from standard form to slope-intercept form. Okay, so to go from standard form to slope-intercept form, again, we want y all by itself, so we start by moving the x term. So I have negative 4y equals negative 7x plus 8. And then from there, I see that I have this negative 4y, negative 4y. So I have to divide everything by a negative 4. So I have y equals negative divided by negative is actually a positive 7/4 x. And then positive divided by negative is negative 8 divided by 4 is 2. So that would be how I get to my slope-intercept form from standard form. I just solve for y, okay? So why don't you go ahead, take a minute, and rewrite this standard form equation in slope-intercept form. Good luck. All right. For this problem, hopefully you started by subtracting 3x from both sides and then dividing everything by 5. If you did that, you should have ended up at y equals negative 3/5 x minus 5. If you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. I'm happy to help you. Let's move on to our next example. So now we're going to rewrite the equation in point-slope form. So if you look, we're starting with our slope-intercept form, and we are going to point-slope form. So this one involves just kind of one little extra step. We need to figure out a point to use in order to make this a point-slope form. So the trick I'm going to teach you is always pick your x value to be whatever is on the bottom of that fraction. So in this case, that's a 5. And you'll see why in a minute. Anytime you do that, when you multiply, you end up with a whole number. And that's the benefit of multiplying by whatever is on the bottom. So 7/5 times 5 just gives you 7. So then we have 7 minus 3, which is just 4. So now I know that y equals 4 and x was 5. So my ordered pair is 5, 4. And then my slope is that 7/5. So if I want to write point slope form, I say y minus my y value equals my slope times x minus my x value. So hopefully that doesn't seem too tough. The toughest thing to remember is just to solve for that point. Okay, so plug in whatever number is on the bottom of the denominator. Let's say your equation was y equals 3x plus 4. The bottom of this fraction is a 1. So you would pick 1 to plug in, okay? You really could pick any number, but that's just kind of a good habit that can work every single time. All right, so why don't you take a minute and solve this one on your own. Good luck. Okay, for this problem, hopefully you picked 3 for your x value, and when you picked 3, you ended up with a -8 for y, so your ordered pair was 3, -8. Your slope was -2/3, so your equation became y minus a -8, or y plus 8, equals -2/3, and then in parentheses, x minus 3. If you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. I'm happy to help you. And let's move on to our last example for today. So now we're going to practice converting from standard form to point slope form. Okay, so there is a little trick for this too. Again, for point slope form, you need to get that point first. So I recommend pick a nice, easy number. I usually recommend picking like a 1 or something. So I know my ordered pair, my x value is going to be 1. And now I have to figure out what y is. So then I'd say 5 times 1 equals, or 5 times 1 plus 3y equals 14. Or 5 plus 3y equals 14. If I subtract 5 from both sides, I'm left with 3y equals 9. And then if I divide 3 on both sides, I get y equals 3. So my ordered pair is 1, 3. Now you might be wondering, how do I find the slope for this equation without converting it to slope-intercept form? Well, a really handy thing that would save you a lot of time, so I recommend you write it down, is this is how you can find your slope from standard form. You can take the opposite of your a value. So in this case, it's a +5. So now it's a -5 over whatever your b value. So it's a 3. So that is your slope. So my equation would be y minus 3 equals -5/3 x minus 1. Okay. Now I want to show you one more thing with this before I move on and let you try one more on your own. Let's say my equation was like -3x plus 7y equals 21. My slope would be -3 over 7. Minus a negative or negative, that becomes a positive. So this would actually be a +3/7. So be really careful with your signs for a. Okay. Now, why don't you go ahead and solve this one on your own? Good luck. Okay, for this problem, hopefully you plugged in a nice easy number like a 1, and you found out that you had y equals -8. So your ordered pair was 1, -8, and then your slope was a -6 over -7, which is +6 over 7. So you'd say y minus the -8 becomes y plus 8 equals 6/7 parentheses x minus 1. Okay. If you have any questions about this problem or anything else from this video, please be sure to reach out for help. I am happy to help you, and I hope you have a great day.